right, the season is almost here. A couple of weeks away before we start getting some juicy stuff. A lot of the great stuff to talk about, the interesting stuff from last season, the off-season free agency and draft, are kind of soaked up. I've kind of covered most of them. I do think there's a few interesting nuggets left to touch on before the new season starts, and I'm going to get into that. I'll cover that over the next 2 weeks. But what I want to cover today, I think it's a very interesting one, is rookies Muhammed Kamara and Chop Robinson. Expectations around these players. Both these guys are easy to root for. We did a lot of drafting of guys that are easy to root for, which is good. They've got talent. They've got skill sets. Maybe you'd say they're a little bit narrow in their skill set now, but they have the potential to expand that, and that's going to be great. But you got to set a realistic bar for what these guys are going to do. And I think the potential is there, but I'm going to set up a framework for how to look at these guys through their talents, what we like to do on defense. So when the season comes, we're not hoping for 10 sacks from Chop and, maybe 10 sacks from Kamara or whatever. These guys have potential. When you look over their skill sets, it fits perfectly with what Weaver likes to do, but it's going to take time. Fortunately, we added Calais Conan Campbell, which was a big deal. And you got Shaq Barrett on the outside, and you got Seal, and these three guys inside until Chubb and Phillips can come in is going to offer a nice buffer for Kamara and Chop to grow, and they need to grow. But when you look at their skill sets, you see places where they can come in and have impact and contribute until those skill sets hopefully expand. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do here today. Not going to be too long, but I think it's important. I think we have to understand what we're doing here because, Chop is a guy you could say, well, man, if he doesn't have 10 sacks like Phillips did, it's a bust. And I don't think that's the case. So anyway, before that, though, guys, I'm coming off the Dougley Do Wrong show. I was a little nervous. I saw all the comments. I heard what Doug said about you guys getting me on the show, and I'm so grateful. I read through all the comments you put on his on the video page. I answered a bunch of them. I didn't want to put too many there because I thought it was like bad form to do what I do, just fill it, answer every comment like a maniac. But I did see them, guys, and I'm so grateful. This show would never go down without you, the two of you, Doug and you guys. So I'm really grateful. It means so much. People, loyalty, relationships, and so you guys got me there. So I want to say thanks. Doug is a good guy. What you see on that camera is the same thing as on the other side of the camera. Talked to him, and it was as easy as pie. Good dude. I'm very grateful to be on, and I do thank you. So anyway, guys, get back to the usual. The likes, the subscribes, the comments, the views. That's what keeps me in the business. And also get me on these big shows. I appreciate that. So I want to give you a shout out and shout out to Spread, my sponsor, because without the two of you, this show ain't going down. Ace Per Head's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. I want to get into a little bit of concept as far as defenders versus blockers, and then take that and then put it over the skill sets of Chop and Kamara. So whether you got your hand in the dirt or you're a stand-up guy or you're coming off the blitz, this all applies. And when two guys meet, one guy trying to break a block or to get someplace, and the other guy is trying to create the block and stop a guy from getting someplace, this little graphic right here will show you kind of the formula for how it happens or does not happen. And so you got one guy, and you got his size, how big he is, how much he weighs. And then you have his strength, the musculature on that body. You could be a big piece of dough with no strength, okay? And you could be a kind of skinny guy, and you could be really strong. But those two come together to create this platform to express the aggression and velocity, which we'll get into next, of the player. But that size and that strength, as the maximum amount that you can get out, is determined mostly through technique. You could be big, you could be strong, and you have no idea what to do with your technique, and you get thrown on your can. And you could be a small guy with not too much strength to a certain point and have great technique and get stuff done. So the technique allows you to maximize that size and strength. And then there's the velocity. Guy's got his hand in the dirt. He comes off the ball quicker than the offensive lineman. That velocity, that initial move, creates an advantage for him. Conversely, if that offensive lineman gets off the ball and gets into the D lineman or the defender before he can get out of his stance, or just as he's getting out of the stance, it goes to the side of the blocker. And so the speed, which someone's coming in there, it plays a big part. It enhances the technique, size, and strength. But then there's the commitment. Guys can come in like a bullet, and then when the guy's there, they shave off because they don't want to sacrifice their body. Or the blocker, he sees some guy coming in, and he just cuts him at the legs because he doesn't want to take that hit. He's not willing to drive his body through. It's the commitment factor that's the final piece of the puzzle. And so you got one rating of this minus the other rating of the other player, and then you divide that, in Curtis's math, by the leverage. And that's the leverage thing is what I want to focus on for Chop and Kamara. Leverage is it's a force multiplier. I've talked about it in the passing game with the receivers driving people off. But then in the blocking game, there's leverage all over the football field. But in the blocking game, leverage is created by the length of arms in one way. So when you got really long arms, you can keep guys off your body. And you can create a leverage there that gives you the advantage. Conversely, when you got short arms, you get those arms out. And if the opponent's got bigger arms, then he can get into your body. And when you get into a guy's body, that's the way you control him. You don't control him on the outside of the pads. You don't control him by pulling the jersey. It's getting inside the body, locking in and getting control. And so, or if you're in a stabbing or ripping, it's getting inside. But then the other act of leverage is the height difference. When one guy, whether he's tall and he knows how to get low, or the other guy's short and the other guy's tall, whoever has that height advantage gets under the guy and he creates leverage, and it enhances the size, strength, technique. It does. It's easy when you're underneath when you're coming over the top to try to get your hands inside. Velocity, and it enhances the physicality. Everything is enhanced through leverage, and that happens through arm length, and it happens through getting inside underneath a guy's pads, getting into him, okay? And so when you look at the two players, Kamara, and you look at Chop, they have good and bad from this. The thing that you're going to see, Chop is a speed freak. He comes off the ball like nobody's business. He doesn't have a lot of hand tools. Both these guys are physical. Both these guys, when I talked about physicality and commitment, that's what they are serious about, giving their bodies for the game. And that's great news. But Chop, his is really about that quick off the ball speed attack. He can get into guys and he can kind of jam up the edge a little bit. Sometimes he gets into problems with the tight end there because he really didn't have a lot of starts. And when you look at his stats and you look at his talent, he amassed a lot of his numbers through poor teams, and he really didn't see a lot of action. So his potential meter is extraordinarily high, and it's going to take him developing his technique. And when you go and you look through what they say here, he is strong run defender, but has some reps where he gets out of his gap to try to make a play. And so it's the experience factor. He's strong, but he doesn't exactly know how to handle it all. He hasn't had enough reps. So that's something that's going to take time. And it's the run game really where you're going to see him being restricted from play. So the quicker he gets into his run game down, the more reps he'll get and the more production he'll get. It says strengths, naturally low, a loaded stance, explodes off the front foot with consistency, elite first explosiveness and acceleration at the arc, weakness, lack of length. So his arms are kind of short, and it's the same thing with Kamara, and that's going to play a part. When you got shorter arms, you lose leverage. It's not a death sentence. I believe Flowers from Patriots had kind of shorter arms. You got to get your technique down. There's always a way to offset a weakness. But this lack of length is a real weakness, and it's going to be offset. He's got the strength and explosiveness. He's going to have to get the hand technique and the combinations. Okay? Lack of length will likely be a consistent issue for him. Does not have adequate amount of counters to get off blocks. Shorter strides makes good explosive and early acceleration. If he doesn't cover a ton of ground when getting up the arc. Gets locked in defenders when defending the run game against TEs too often. Hand usage, placement needs consistency. And so this guy gets his... And look, Phillips was pretty raw. I don't think he was as raw as Chop. But you could see Phillips worked so hard, and year 1 to year 2 was unbelievable. He really had an unbelievable growth in 22, and you could see it in 23. Unfortunately, he was injured, and it didn't really get expressed on the field because he was injured early, and then he got injured late, but he was starting to heat up. And so you can grow in this stuff. Now, he's got the length, all right, but he's a little bit taller. And so he's got to work on that, where these guys are a little bit, Chop is 6'3", Kamara 6'1". But this is something, it's going to take time. And if you remember Phillips, he had 10 sacks or something his rookie season, unbelievable, but he was terrible in the run game. And so I expect something similar with Chop. I expect him coming in on certain downs. If we get them off schedule, you blitz him when it's, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10 and longer, and he'll get his experience. He might get his experience on a 2nd down and 10 on a two-way go down where it could be a run and could be a pass. Don't see him coming in on first downs too much early. You never know. We'll see how camp plays out for him. Then you got Kamara. Kamara is more physical than Chop. He plays with power. He gives his body. He shoots and attacks. He's the bull rush guy. And it's interesting because Kamara's got the speed to the edges where he's the bull rush guy. And I do see Kamara possibly getting a little bit more because of the physicality. Both these guys, I'll get to Kamara in a second, both these guys, what the Ravens like to do, they run 3 down linemen, 3 linebacker edge guys, maybe 2 linebackers and an edge, and then they got, your 5 guys in the backfield, in the defensive backfield. But they blitz, and they do, remember Phillips, they used to run the stunts inside on certain pass rush downs, and that's how Phillips got a lot of his play. I could see these two guys with their quick bursts doing great on stunts and twists, and then coming in for fire blitzes. So that's where I see them playing. But I do see Kamara maybe being more of the guy you bring in on the two-way go downs where it could be a run or pass. Maybe not first down unless you're firing him out. But if you look at him, rushes with comes with natural pros and cons. The pros are that he really explodes out of the low loaded stance with good pad level to fuel his preferred move, a bull rush. The cons are the lack of length, which makes it more difficult for him to really press offensive linemen in his bull rush. It also holds him back from being able to get off blocks. He's a strong player, though, and has a motor that is always running hot. I watched him for his Boise State, and I could see him getting into trouble just because of his length. But they're not a really great team, but he really started to find his way as the game progressed and really had some serious impact. He doesn't have the same explosion. He isn't as tall. But his power, the bull rush is the easiest move to start off with. If you got the bull rush and you can get that thing off, a DC goes, I know what to do. I could just use you and attack the edge. You don't have to two gap. You just one gap, shoot this guy, shoot the gap, shoot this guy, drive him back, whether it's a tight end or a tackle. And he could do that kind of stuff. Strengths wins with power, lower height, makes the natural leverage advantage, which maximizes his power output in the bull rush. Contact, loaded stance allows him to accelerate on his front foot with a good pad level. So he gets good leverage. And at 6'1", that was Flowers. Flowers was short too. So he's going to be able to get under those guys and explode into them. And if you got, say, Shaq Barrett, you've got Sealer, and you've got Campbell, these guys are going to soak up the doubles. It's going to allow him to pick and choose, the DC Weaver to pick and choose where to use this guy. And I think he could certainly handle tight ends. And so you could put him outside on the strong side and fire him out. And I think he's going to do pretty good against most tight ends. Weaknesses at 6'1", his length will be an issue. Even with hand moves, it's tough to get off blocks due to the lack of length. It is and it isn't. If you can get inside, even with the shorter hands, if you can get inside and underneath and you're driving those pads back, or if the guy puts his hand out to stab you and you can swim, you can get off it. It does make it harder because that hand hits you. It's a quick draw. Two guys draw and the hand gets out quick. So I do think both these guys are going to contribute. I do think whoever gets their run defense down quickest is going to have the better season. And it could be that Kamara has the better season than Chop, but Chop's potential could be, the tortoise versus the hare. So both these guys are thankfully going to be shielded by Barrett and by Campbell, and then Chubb and Phillips coming in. And you can wrap these guys around those four guys for your six-man total. Maybe good if he comes back. And you can build these guys' confidence up, get them in there, find their niche. They're sort of a niche player, so let them do their niche, let them succeed, and let them grow. I definitely think they'll do something this year. I think they're going to be solid returns long term. Van Ginkel, unbelievable player. He showed a little bit year one and a lot in year two. So I think both these guys are more year two guys, which is fine because you got Phillips and maybe you move off of Chubb. Certainly, I think Campbell will be gone and Barrett will be gone. So, guys, set your expectations up reasonably for these guys. They're physical. And that is a great thing. That's the spirit of football, and it's great to bring that on to our defense. I love it, and I'm hoping the best for these guys, but I'm trying to keep it in that median level. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed. I think this defense has potential. There's some flaws. Obviously, I'll get into that. But with what we got here, both these guys should contribute and be good players, and maybe even very good players eventually. I hope you enjoyed, guys. I appreciate all you do. Thanks again. Thanks again for all your support. I'm not going to have a live this Friday. News is light. I'm going to get ready for the season. It's going to kick off very hot. So be well. Go Fins. Curtis out. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.